Rev up your engines!
Well, if you remember all that insanity that was going on with the Nikola electric truck, where they're now being sued for fraud to get investors to put money in, according to court documents, they say that the Nikola electric truck prototypes they have were powered by hidden wall sockets that you couldn't see, like when it was on stage, and that they were towed in position and even rolled down hills pretending, look, it's driving. No, the reason it was going downhill is because it was rolling. It didn't run by itself. Now, in this court case, the prosecutors are saying that they were Frankenstein machines that were cobbled together from parts from other vehicles. You remember some of it, they showed computer parts that were inside them. Now, Trevor Milton, the head of it, he claimed that they developed working prototypes. But it seems, in fact, there were no actual working prototypes at all. Another scam of the electric age. And of course, they lied about these breakthroughs so people would invest in the company. What a surprise. If you've ever invested in stocks and you get information from the company, in the end it usually says, these are forward-looking statements. There's no proof that's what's going to happen. And this guy should have said, these are just a bunch of make-believe crap. Hey, just give me your money. I want to gamble with it. Turns out that they really didn't build anything at all. They just had mock-ups. Because when they had public events, the prototype vehicles, they towed them in, and then they had plugs behind them in hidden wall sockets so that people couldn't see them because they were on stage and that was behind them. Now, this Milton guy resigned in September as the judicial department started to look into this stuff. He was taken into custody Thursday in Manhattan. Then he was released on a $100 million bond. Gee, I wonder if the people invested in the stocks are the ones that are paying for his bond. And of course, the company Nikola says, well, it's nothing to do with us. He's not even in the company anymore, and he hasn't been involved since last year, you know? Yeah, but he was running the company. It was all based on this fraud. It doesn't matter. If people invested in that company because this guy was lying, he's not there anymore. Well, the company that they lied about is, I think they owe them a whole bunch of their money back for lying about what they could do and faking their electric vehicle. As everybody that knows anything about technology today realizes, these big semi-electric trucks, I doubt if any of them are ever going to pass the mustard with batteries in them. In Germany, they're already using hydrogen fuel cell ones. Maybe they'll have ammonia fuel cell ones. Makes sense. Why have a big, heavy, expensive battery when you can use a fuel cell with a different fuel supply? And they don't pollute either. So, I mean, I think the death knell of big electric 18-wheelers is starting to ring. Those bells, goodbye battery electric giant trucks that pull things around, and hello fuel cell trucks. It only makes sense. I feel sorry for people who invested in a company, but they should have thought. If you remember back in the day, even Bill Gates said, no, that's not going to work. And then, of course, Elon tweeted out, what does Bill know about electric vehicles? Oh, Bill's not a stupid guy, right? He looked at it, hey, batteries way too much, cost too much. Other ways to go. And then this Nikola company, and maybe they'll make a truck that has batteries, but I just about guarantee it's not going to be a big money maker. They're just too inefficient. It costs too much. You got to recharge them, which takes hours and hours to recharge. Where if it's a fuel cell, in goes the hydrogen, in goes the ammonia if they decide to make ammonia once. Completely different ballgame. O-Dog says, what do you think of the chip shortage? Why do they even make cars they don't have parts for? Because it's called capitalism and greed. They don't want to invest the research and development into making chips and then having to have the clean environment to build the chips, so they have other people do it for them to save money. Cars come from all over. I laughed when I drove that new F-150 the other day when I brought it over for the raffle I was talking about. They had a sign, and it said, contains 55% parts from the USA and Canada, contains 15% parts from Mexico, and that was it. Okay, what's that? 70. There's still 30% of the parts. They don't even tell you where they come from. And they just do it because it's cheaper to make it that way. I had a guy with a Ford once, and he said, I need the seal, but the seals are made in Turkey. He said they wanted like $400 for these seals. They had come all the way from Turkey, you know? And I've seen some of them that had bumpers that were made in Africa somewhere. So they come from all over because to make it cheaper to build them. It's all they care about is the bottom line. And that's why the chip shortage, they didn't make it themselves. They had somebody else make them and then bit them in the rear end when there was a problem. Felix Burkforth says, why can't the U.S. market get the diesel engines with manual gearbox the rest of the world can? Well, there's two main reasons. The federal government isn't into diesel and pollutions and stuff like that, so there are not that many diesel cars to begin with. And the second is, the average American is lazy. 96% of Americans drive automatic transmission cars. So you're only talking about 4% of the market. So you got an unpopular diesel engine with an unpopular manual transmission, and they wouldn't sell that many of them. There's no reason for a company to build a product that they're not going to sell a mass amount of them. It's only common sense. That's why the Toyota Supra is really a BMW Roadster made in Austria. Nothing to do with Toyota. Toyota didn't want to do all the research and development to make a sports car. It's too much work. So they just said, oh, you make them for us, BMW. We'll call them the Toyota Supra. And that's it. They're not making a profit. Why should they? They only sold a few thousand each year. Why the heck would they put all that R&D into doing that? And that's why you'll probably never see anybody in the United States selling manual diesel cars in the United States because of all those factors. Anthony asks us, where's the Car Killer app? If you want to ask me questions, do ScottyKilmer.com, and that goes to my Car Killer website, and it's just a place where people answer questions and ask questions, and that's what it is. You want to ask me a question, you go to ScottyKilmer.com. You want to see my videos, watch them on YouTube. Everybody watches them on YouTube. I've got over 1.5 billion views on YouTube. It's a platform that works. You put on a YouTube video, you see it. I tried stuff in the past with other companies, and it was garbage. The videos wouldn't play. They'd stick in the middle. They'd stick ads all over the place, and all they cared was that the ads would play. And interesting enough, their ads would play great, and then they'd go to my video, and the video would freeze up. That's not how YouTube is, so that's where you want to watch the videos. And if you're going to do something like that yourself, believe me, it's the best place to do it. People will be able to see them, and the world can look at it, and it's cool because you have nothing to do with it. I don't have anything to do with the ads that run. They run them, so it's not these companies you see are paying me money. No, they aren't. Google's paying me money. It's all indirect, so I have no control over it, and I don't want to, because if I did, then it would say, oh, Scotty's running all these ads, and they're telling him what to say. No, I don't work that way. I have nothing to do with putting them in. Grant Arthur says, I got an 02 Honda Civic LX, 180,000 miles. It needs brake lines. The frame's still solid. I know 180 on a can of Honda's breaking in. You think it's worthwhile spending the money? Now, if you're talking about the rubber brake hoses, yeah, sure, they just bolt on off as nothing. But if the actual metal lines are rusted and going through, you'd have to replace them all, which is going to cost you a whole bunch of money. I don't know if you'd want to go that far. Now, on the other hand, if you can find one in the junkyard that all the lines aren't rusted, and they'll sell you the lines, just bolt them off, bring the whole set, and go right ahead. Or if you know a guy who custom makes brake lines, you can give him the old rusted ones and he'll know how to bend them and he can make them for you. The actual raw brake lines, straight ones, don't cost that much money, but then they have to be bent in the correct things. If you know a guy, can find a guy who can make them, go ahead, go that route. But of course, if your frame's starting to rot and everything like that, don't waste your money. The whole car's falling apart. But if it's only the brake lines, and some of those Honda brake lines weren't coated that well, the coating comes off and they rust, I'd replace them if it wasn't too expensive. If you can find a place that can either have them, find a used one in a junkyard, or have somebody build them for you, giving them the old broken ones so they know how to bend them. The guys have tools to do it. It's not rocket science. It's just a matter of time, and they need to know what it looks like, so you take the old ones off, give them to them, and they can just copy them. The Stanley Way says, my AC compressor releases Freon and high pressure bursts at 2,000, 2,500 RPM. It's a Toyota Sequoia. I assume the compressor is bad. I don't think it's the compressor. Here's why. If it's releasing pressure, that thing is pumping like mad. What probably is wrong is somewhere between the compressor and the condenser, or the condenser and the evaporator, there's a restriction. Let's say you have a stuck expansion belt right next to the evaporator in the dash. That will build the pressure up high. After the pressure gets too high, the compressor itself, it's called the pop-off valve. And when the pressure gets too high, it opens up and goes shh and releases the refrigerant. Now, you say it blows cold until it gets low enough in refrigerant, so that shows you the compressor's working. You got a restriction somewhere, and look by the condenser. If you got hit in an accident or a rock hit it and bent the line, it's a metal line, and crimped it, that's going to build up pressure. Something is building up pressure. Even a clogged up receiver dryer, that'll build up pressure, and that's between the compressor and the evaporator. Something is building up pressure, making it do that. It's probably not the compressor itself, because like I say, it's building up enough pressure to go, and it cools until you run out of refrigerant. You got some kind of restriction, so find that and fix it. GRIV80 says, I have a Jeep Patriot 4x4. I'm going to switch out my front passenger lower control arm. Do I need an alignment afterwards? It probably would be a good idea, because you're changing a lower control arm. But let's say you bought a factory lower control arm that was perfectly made. It would not affect the alignment because it would be the same exact size and shape. The odds of getting one part that's exactly the same as the other, and you're dealing with front-end alignments that go by thousandths of an inch, I would say get an alignment, because hey, when they build cars brand new from scratch, they have to align them before they sell them to them, because they has to be set up. They're all never exactly made the same size, so I'd say it would be a good idea to get an alignment afterwards. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.